Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs. We are starting to put more content up there, guys, and getting the reels together. I am also starting, by the time this podcast comes out, we will be doing the events have started to happen for Gorilla Brave, so there'll be photos and stuff like that coming out. Also, I'm visiting a lot of the entrepreneurs that have been on the show, so as you see those reels come out for the podcast, there is content and stuff related to the entrepreneurs that are on the show. I'm going to try to do a world tour of all the entrepreneur areas, at least in concentrations over the next 18 months, and that it's also a good excuse to go to a bunch of World Cup games next year. So that being said, who's with me on World Cup? And I'm going to introduce our guest. So I have Monica with us today from Del Aroma Cafe out of Corpus Christi, Texas. How are you doing today, Monica?
I'm doing great. It's a great day here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Weather is perfect and we're doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It is cold here in Denver. It was warm for a couple of days, as what happens in Denver. It teases us a little bit, and then we'll get a couple of days of really cold weather before it warms up for the rest of the year, and maybe some snow here and there. But everyone knows in Denver that we get 300 days of sunshine, and most of the time it's above 70 degrees here, so no humidity either. So it's pretty nice. I do miss the ocean, but let's talk about you, Monica. Let's talk about your story. You've built a beautiful business, food, comments, social media, all of it's, you're sort of building this structure. It's one of the reasons I want to have you on this show. I'm going to just tell the audience, I've been watching this and the building of a business, the building of social media, the foundation is there and the scalability is starting to happen. And that's what I've one of the interests that caught my eye, one of the reasons I reached out and I pursued for the show for sure. So Monica, the mic's yours. Let's go all the way back to little Monica. Let's talk about your story, where you're from, the trajectory literally that got you to be a food entrepreneur.
Sure. Let's go way back to a little town in Mexico, right by the border, right across the border. I live in Corpus Christi right now, and we're about 2.5 hours away from the border of Mexico. And actually, once you cross the border, there's this little town called Rio Bravo, Tamaulipas, which is in between the bigger cities will be Matamoros and Reynosa. We're right in between, and this is where I was born in Reynosa, but raised and did all the way to my college in Rio Bravo. And I think that's what, like now I think about it and I want to say, if somebody asks me or I get asked about how did you start or how did this, I think it was from little. And honestly, I can tell you all so and so and name names, but my biggest influence has always been my mother. My mother, my grandmothers, my aunts, my mother that will turn something very simple, some simple ingredients into like magic, or growing up to like things were hard like at times. And I honestly did not realize that things were hard until I came older. I didn't realize that the fact that my mom will cook all of these things, sometimes it will be just like, I didn't know until later that we didn't really have sometimes even money to buy or something like a sweet treat. So my mom will burn like that and make, and I said burn not in the way of burning, but in the way that you make cajeta quemada, which is basically like a burnt caramel. That's what it translates to. That she will make this delicious candy for us, and for us they were like. And now you buy it, and it's kind of like a treat, and people can like charge money for it. But my mom used to do it out of necessity because there was really not much. But she did have milk because we did have cows, and and you do have the sugar or the canes where you do the sugar, and my mom will turn all of this into things. So she always made it seem like there was not a problem. There was always like good food at the table, and like I said, the pot can be in the stove, and as soon as she turned that stove on, and the house would already start smelling, like something even before she pulled. Like once she throws spices on there, it was like an unbelievable like smell and unbelievable. Now at times when I go visit or she comes to my house and she starts putting that pot and some spices into that, and like it brings me all the way back to, when I was little, when I was like, like growing up. And I used to watch her like do all of these things. And now I realize, and since then, like I said, I, that's how I learn. And I will do it. She will make flour tortillas, for example. She will make them. She will start making them fresh every morning. And she will make it like it's no big deal. Like you're just like pouring a cup of water, right? And she will throw them in the comal and in the grill, and we'll have. And so I started doing the same thing at a very young age for my dolls. I will play with my dolls. I remember playing with dolls all the way till I was 16 years old. And I remember this because people used to make fun of me because I was already too old. But my biggest, the best part I enjoy about doing that is I will make the same food my mom is making, but I will make it in miniature versions for all my toys and all my dolls. That's why I enjoy so much playing until a very old age, because I started also now baking. At this time I'm making a little like small cakes and small thing again from ingredients. Sometimes the ingredients that you just go in your grandma's backyard and you will pick just blackberries or oranges or figs, or all of these things that you will just pick, like peaches from the trees outside. It was not something. Now you consider, you go to the store and all of this organic stuff. Now I realize, oh my God, I had all of this organic stuff all to me. And in a way, it's like, like money wasn't something that it was a lot, but it was a lot of love, and all of these things that now you have to pay a lot of money for, because all the organic stuff. But that's how my roots and my what everything started from. Like me, like growing up watching my mother, my aunts, my grandmother, like in their little town. They were like one of the first ones to build that town, kind of. So a lot of people will come to their house for holidays and that, and there will always be food. My grandpa always like offer people food, coffee, food. There was nobody will, like anybody that will step into that side, there was always something cooking, whether it was in the grill outside, on the inside. I mean, times where like all the aunts will come and make tamales or make all of this on the food. So I grew up around that. And I think that's what all my inspirations come from, very little, from all my roots and like the influential woman in my life.
I'm going to pause you for a second. I know I said go all the way through, but let's talk about you like cooking, you like baking, you like creating. There's a creative thing. You go to college. Is it connected? Or do you just go to college to be what we all think we're going to do? I'm just going to go do what everyone expects me to do, or go build a new life for myself. Talk to me a little bit about that perspective.
Can
Because you
can
have
I
the talent.
elaborate it?
Yeah,
Can I
absolutely.
elaborate on that, because it was kind of a hard thing.
Yeah.
So when growing up, like I was the first female in my family that went to college, because it's like growing up in a, like small communities. Well, mine, they're like the woman role is like, you don't need to go to college. One day you're gonna be taken care of by your husband. I never believed in that. I always had this spark on me. And then it's kind of funny. My uncles, I had this nickname. My nickname was La Mula. And La Mula is like the mule. That's what it says. And in Spanish, they match this description with somebody that is stubborn, and it's kind of like you do it your own way, right? So I was stubborn.
Oh,
Like
it's
I
like
knew
the
that was.
donkey in Italian. We have a
Yeah.
similar thing. So,
Yes.
so-
So I was la mula, because I will say no, you're not, and I'm like, and they will always tell me, oh, you'll be a good lawyer if you decide to go to school. You'll be a good lawyer. And it's like my uncles will joke with me and will say that will you take me out if I give them in trouble, and I will tell them, no, I will put you in jail if you don't do right by your wife or by society. I will put you, and I will joke with them. So going back at that, so when of course my mother was all for it, but my mother was always worried, because the what I wanted to go study for is communication and English. I think the translation is like communication math, like, right? I always like talking, communicating with people, and I always like all this things. And it's funny because my dream was to be like in the news, kind of, and I would love to. My dream was to go to like the war, like when people are somewhere and transmitting from like the war. I have no idea why now, but I had that in my brain, right? So I always wanted to do something in the communication field, like even the marketing, like the newspaper, the like television, all of this stuff. Always kind of like it was my thing. But my mother will say, "But mija, like there's no work for here. Like, and here in our little town, you're not going to have any future. You're going to waste the future, but going to go study that, because the future for you should be like an engineer, like, right? Go do an engineer, go do computers, go do something that is going to grow bigger. Like right now, what you want to go, I feel like that field is dying. Like, so here I go trying to, like, like listen, well, not to listen, but I place my mind. I said, like, maybe she's right. Maybe I should go. So I did go for one semester. I went to do engineer and engineer and computer science, right? But I am not at my old age. I figured out the reason why I felt dumb too, because I didn't know until I was very in my 40s now that I found out that I am
Yeah.
ADHD.
Oh, geez.
And I'm also dyslexic, right? But the thing is, numbers were not my thing. So my grades were very bad. I was not happy. I was miserable. I was traveling in a bus very early in the morning for a whole hour to go to school and coming back. And those grades were not coming. So painfully, I had to tell my mother and my father that that's not what I wanted to do. That I did wanted I think my dad was disappointed a little bit in me, and he thought, she's not gonna go back to school. She's not gonna go back to school. That's it. And but I returned the following semester, and I went for what I loved. And and I finished my career in communications. Like, I did, and again, I felt like I was, but and it's funny because I love communicating. I love talking to people. I absolutely love talking to people. I can talk all day long, and I can listen to people, and I love and I learn through people experiences, recipes, like way of living from other places. I absolutely enjoy that time. So I feel like. But in between all of this, while I was going to college, and that I had this college friend that we used to get together all the time. And it was funny. Most of the college people, like, you're going out and you're drinking and and us, there would be us in the kitchen baking cakes and doing our own spin on a carrot cake, for example. What if we add this other fruit? And now the next week we had another fruit, and let's add that. And or like, let's cook this spaghetti, like, with, and what if we throw this in there? And what if we throw that? And I will ask my mom, and my mom was like, well, maybe this, maybe so. Sometimes it was substitutions because we didn't have what we needed. So it was kind of like a try and error. So it's kind of funny and not funny because it was like my thing was communication, but through all the time that was my fun thing to do. We were always in the kitchen or baking for every birthday of anybody of the friend group that we have. It was the cake, the homemade cake, like that, like the spaghetti or the Mexican dish or some tacos or some other kind of salsa. So we enjoy a lot of that during that also the period while I'm studying and I'm doing my communications and I'm doing all of this stuff. And I just finished my career in there, like, and from there it started my United States like field, because after I finished college I said, that's it, I'm gonna go out to learn English. And I remember going to Chicago in the summer because I have family members over there to visit. And I'm a Philly person. The minute that I stepped into that airport and I got off, there was this wind that just hit my face, and something in that wind told me, this is the place for you, and this is the place where you're gonna. So I went back a year later to learn my English over there, and that's how like.
So you went
Mhm.
from very warm-ish Mexico to very cold in the wintertime. I should know. I spent some time there. More snow dumped on me than anywhere I've ever seen. However, not a total accumulation, I would say, like losing my car. It was so much snow. So I'm interested to talk about this. I want to talk about this transition into Chicago, the growth there in particular. But I have to laugh about that. And if anyone's wondering, the most snow I've ever seen come down in one day, I swear to you, was like 10 feet in Buffalo, New York, when we were doing Meals on Wheels program there for food service partners in a partnership with
Oh,
Sodexo.
wow.
And we're trying to fly out of the airport. And literally it went from like, we're driving the airport, it's probably 50 degrees, no problem. Everyone's like, you need to really get to the airport. You probably need to try to get on an earlier flight. It's not going to be good. And I'm like, what is everyone talking about? It looks fine here. Boom. Next thing you know, I've never seen snow come down like that in my entire life. And I truly understood the meaning of whiteout as you get up near the Great Lakes, for sure. So let's talk about the transition from Mexico to Chicago. There, a cultural shock, learning a new language, place you've never been before. probably somewhat by yourself. Let's talk about that, the growth there, because I think it's all important to becoming an entrepreneur, the boldness, the courage here to go out on your own. Let's
And
anchor this.
now that I reflect on it, it is so, like I was just telling you about college, how like it was funny that I love talking and I love communicating with people, and then then between the food, the baking, all of these, it's always been my thing too. Like I think that's how I met, but it's a little farther down in the line, my husband too. But there's always food. So when I go to Chicago, somewhat I didn't have it as hard as some people, like does, because I went to a place where I lived with my aunts, my mother's sister, and her like kids. They were older than me and that, and I had a couple more like aunts and uncles in there. So I didn't move totally to somewhere where like I don't know anybody. It was a totally different place for me, but at least I had that warm. And my one aunt that I lived with, she was the oldest of like, well, my grandmother had 20 kids. They lived only 16 made it, but I mean they were a big family too. So my aunt, the oldest, it was the one that lived in there. So she also wonderful like cooking like skills, beautiful. She used to make tamales for sale too. And that's kind of how, like, when I got there, right, my parents didn't really have money to send me off with all this money or try to send me money from Mexico over here. And I was always very independent and very, like, I always tried to help them as much as I can. I worked through the whole time that I was in college too, like, so it wouldn't be like, the cost for them will like mitigate somehow, like by me helping them. So when I lived, I would say, don't worry, once I get there, I will do something. I will figure out a way to, don't worry about me. Like, and I'm with family and it's not like I'm gonna pay rent. Well, here's my cousin used to work at the courthouse, at the juvenile courthouse there in Chicago. And she knew a lot of people. She's a good talker too. So she knew a lot of people. So I started making, the way I started making money is I started making for my own. I wanted money to have in my own spend, my own money. So I started making butter cookies, and I will package them. I remember going to Aldi to buy, all this, the butter and the flour. And I always looked into, okay, because I was resourceful, like my mother, right? So I'm like, okay, what is the most yummiest? And also let's cause it. It's gonna take me for me to like make a little profit, and I don't have to be bothering people with money. So the butter cookie was because it literally just a few ingredients, and then I will guide this. But I would like to put my personal touch. I will put them into this plastic bag. I will make a nice bowl for it. Like I will put my heart into it, and I will go to the courthouse and sit right outside when it was weather permitted. When if not, it was water. My cousin would tell everybody in a communication, "Hey, she's coming today. She's got cookies. She's got her butter cookies. I mean, how many?" By the time I got there, my cookies were already sold. And when weather permitted, I will sit outside the courthouse with a little basket, and I have no time those cookies like were gone. And as soon as the weather become like a little like warmer, then I will add not only the cookies but the fruit containers. I will do the same thing, cut them in very nice even squares and put them a certain way that they look aesthetically pleasing to my eye at that time. It was basically my eye, and I will like sell a lot of every day. I will never leave that place without me having everything sold out of my basket. That's how I started actually making also money. So you see, it's like also about, like prepping some food and doing something for like people. And it was kind of like fun. And it was kind of, to me, I was like, wow, I'm able to make some money for myself, and I'm doing something that I actually enjoy and love. It was a wonderful feeling, like having to be kind of independent too and say, no, 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 I got this. You don't have to be paying for me for all of these other things. So that's how my food also started like there in Chicago, selling stuff out of my baskets outside the court.
Let's talk about this a little bit. You're learning, you've got the ingenuity. I think it's important. I also think the resourcefulness as an entrepreneur is important. Even, I'm going to say this, and people are going to think I'm crazy, because the goal as humans is to better our situations, always, not worsen them. But I do recommend everyone, even if you have comfort in your life, you push yourself to a discomfortable situation financially. And if extra money, you put it away right now for your business or your entrepreneurial venture. But you need to live in the resourcefulness area for a while. And the reason I say it, guys, is not because one way or the other. I say it because in being a successful entrepreneur, decades in, you get very comfortable and you forget the resourcefulness sometimes in your own life as well as in your businesses. And it does cost you. It's no joke. It is the glaring alarm. It is the thing that once the entrepreneur loses it because their business is successful, the business loses it also. Even with a really good financial person, even with a really, what I would call conservative accountant, the entrepreneur, the reflection of that does enter our businesses. How do I know? I've done it. I've watched it. I've seen it not only in myself, but in others. And so it does happen. And the reason we spend so much time in these non-tangibles on the podcast is because everyone in the world gives you a lot of information on how to run your businesses, but it's these little things when you start getting into the 10, the 20 years in your business that if you don't build from early on or you don't have in your character from early on, it does cost you time and money later on, maybe even your business. And it's not everyone's like, oh, the 7-year mark, we've made it. Yeah, the 7-year mark is hard. So is the 11-year mark. So is the 18-year mark. So is the 20-year mark. So is the 24-year mark. So you don't know what years are going to be hard. Destiny's going to tell you, life's going to tell you, crises are going to tell you. And as Monica and I were talking about a little bit beforehand, went through 9/11 in my company. We went through the financial crisis and COVID, not to mention the hurricane and the flood that hit New York City, natural disasters in the Southeast, earthquakes, fires, whatever that we're having to also jump into action across everywhere we do contract food for long-term care homes, hospitals, grocery stores, whatever we were doing. We still never missed a delivery in 24 years. That was our thing. Like food has a lot of external things that can go wrong. Supplier not show up. Oh, I got to call a dietitian at a hospital group. Broccoli didn't come in today. We need to do a switch on the menu. What can we approve? What still meets the calorie count? What still meets each diet? Oh, we need to do green beans and asparagus because we're now crossing diets where broccoli crossed all diets. So those are like, life has to be that way. So you have to have something really good in your character all the time. And for us, delivering and never missing a delivery to a hospital every night or a grocery store every day or a restaurant every evening was our way of showing up always. Because that was a core value and a character that lived in me, it lived in my family, it lived in the way we played sports. No matter what, on the farm, you had to show up or the animal was going to die. So oddly, that character trait in my family, that character on the farm, that tradition both came from both the Italian side of my family and the Native American, Italian, Dutch side of my family, both had that same thing. And it went into my business. Work hard, strong work ethic. Work is worship. If you believe in God, when you're working, you're giving praise to Him. You're glorifying His kingdom. So do it the best you can, no matter what you're doing. And He will give you abundance and growth in it. That turned into the business. That meant never missing a delivery. That meant even when we were doing something wrong, we admitted it. And even if it cost us money, even if it cost us a lot of money. So, and sometimes, I will say even years later, there's still some things that I have to go make amends for after the companies have been sold, broken apart, whatever has happened over the last 5 years. So bankrupt some, but that's a part of business, guys. That's a part of making decisions. It's also a part of knowledge of what can happen when your business gets very old. When people go from thinking they are enjoying something, that something's given to them because they're working hard, to then the transition of entitlement because they've been there so long, or you've paid them a lot of money and you've shared the wealth. But guess what, guys? On the weirdest part about being an entrepreneur is if you share too much, you actually hurt the human and their family. You hurt the generations, they don't have the same character you have that built the business. Can you instill character on them through your business? Yes. But giving too much too fast just creates where now money pays for whatever sin pattern exists. And now it just makes it even worse in the family, in the unit. I know that's hard for everyone to believe, and they're like, oh, well, who are you to say? Here's what I am to say. Share the wealth, but do it in a way that doesn't crush someone. Because no different than an athlete that ends up worse when they get more money than they did before they ever had it, because now they have it and they keep spending it. No different than Mike Tyson going bankrupt, Evander Holyfield, whoever else. I don't know if it was Evander Holyfield, but whoever else, maybe it was MC Hammer during that era, I think I'm thinking of. But either way, that's what happens. So, Monica, I just want to anchor resourcefulness. I think it's an important part of being an entrepreneur. I think the understanding it is important. And I think, guys, listen, as, gosh, someone's going to get really angry at me and call me like capitalist and all these things. But in terms of the general workforce turns on work and turns off work. Most humans don't live work like an entrepreneur. It's not a constant thought pattern. And I gave this analogy the other day, and it's true. I always have two strains of consciousness going on at a time. Where I am presently and where I am in my business. Okay. Now, am I getting better at not at letting the business behind? But it's hard when you live it, when it's part of what you do all the time. Maybe your family's involved, maybe your husband, your spouses, it does become that. And most of the world doesn't live that way. So to compensate for 8 hours of work when you're doing 24, it's a one way to think about it. And it's not saying not share the wealth, but it's an understanding of why everyone's like, well, why are they taking so much? Well, what everyone doesn't see is the mental gymnastics that actually go on 24/7, even when you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So while they're getting paid for their 8 hours, we're getting paid for our 24. And guess what? We didn't get paid for those 24 in the first 7 years we were in business. Not even close. Yes. Compensated comparatively if we were compensated by your 8 hours worth of pay by that hourly rate. And that is the truth. The people see businesses and greatness. They assume everything's behind it, but it takes a long time for the human to catch up to the business, no different than it takes the outside a long time to catch up with the inside when it changes in the human. So I just want everyone to think about that. The business has to be doing very well for a long time and have stability and success and growth for there to be success then personally, financially in the entrepreneur. It's not an instant thing, and it definitely doesn't happen overnight, even when the business is successful. So, Monica, let's go. What do you learn selling what I'll call slinging your cookies at the courthouse? Oh, I love the way that sounded. Tell me, what did that teach you?
Well, for one thing also, because I think growing up, and because of, like I was telling you before, like, and now I'm like older in my life, I discovered through actually advocating and getting my middle child, because I missed that with my oldest because I was young and I was by myself. And I was learning that she had like also ADHD, and I wasn't able to help her as much as now I did. The other one, I learned myself that I also was ADHD. So I think, and I've been a perfectionist, like, and also one of the things that was hard for me was like it wasn't necessarily that I didn't know, I didn't understand. I understand the language. I was going to the Malcolm X College in there in Chicago to learn English first than anything, right? But it was hard for me. Like, I was so embarrassed of I think I told you at the beginning too, of my accent, right? Of like, I wanted to be perfect, speaking the English perfect, right? So it was hard for me. I understand, but the first thing that taught me, like, that I needed to loosen up, and like, and that's how I actually learned the English, communicating with those, like, with all those lawyers and all those people that will come. Because I will sell my cookies not only to the people that is going to the court, but mainly was because, like I said, my cousin worked with them and she has some kind of credibility, and my aunt will already sell tamales to them. So it's kind of like paving the way already. I kind of have some kind of like like back at to I wasn't not just somebody that they didn't know. Like they knew my family from before. So okay, this is the continuation. Like she must be. That's how they already kind of approach. And so it taught me how to like people skills, to how to like deal with people. And I also had to start like loosening up and like practicing actually my English. That was that was better than going actually to, I mean, yes, I was learning how to write it, how to read it at the college and that, but like it was nothing like the practice, like, like practice, like speaking to them. And also, of course, like, like again, you're an entrepreneur. Like at this time, I don't even know that I am. And I didn't even know my mother was, but she was, because my mother also used to sell in Mexico. After I left, she will sell her tacos and all of this at the high school, like in the at the recess time. So I think I was learning all this entrepreneur, like how, like, okay, I will say, okay, let me budget. Let me know for sure, because yeah, you do the school, but they don't really teach you like life skills. So how to like budget for this. And then I'm like, okay, my mom is not here, my dad is not here. And okay, let me budget, like, okay, what do I have this week? What do I want to do this week with this money that I have? But I needed to make sure that I have all the money for the butter, for the flour, for like if it was the spring or the summer, okay, like I will like do my research, okay, and the paper and all that Mexican store. Okay, let me see on which store is like the one like the cheapest like watermelon this week, or the cheapest. So it like taught me to also, and even though I hated numbers, because I always did, like I don't numbers weren't my thing, because I'm dyslexic and I kind of like flip the numbers, and that will frustrate me because I would think that I was dumb when it came to numbers, but it wasn't. It was just my brain that I have like a different kind of brain, but I was actually good at thinking, okay, I think I flipped this number and I can fix it, right? So it taught me all of this, like how to budget, how to do this, and how to also basically the people skills too, because there be people that be not very nice, and they will say to things to you because they see you, they like, you're, some people did not like my accent, or did not like, but for the most part they all did. But you do get this, and like at the beginning, I used to feel sad about it, and I used to feel less, and I used to feel bad. But then you will come, it was maybe what, like 5%, 10% of the people, more than 90% were super nice with me and super like supportive and like super like stuff. So you kind of, I actually happy that there was a lot of people, that some of the people did not like what I did or did say things to me, because I kind of build me to like deal with this in life. I feel like these days, and again, I don't want to get anybody angry too, like just like you say, but I feel like these days, and I am guilty of that. I try to take all that away from my kids so they don't have to. And sometimes we actually do need to let them deal with life the way the life is, so you know how to come and navigate that.
Exactly. 100%. I
Mhm.
agree with that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about language a little bit real quick, because this is something. Well, I minored in Spanish. I spent a lot of time with Spanish just because of the nature of the businesses I ran in. A majority of the employees we had in California and Texas were Spanish speaking, as well as Florida. And so, but I will say, guys, the population does vary depending on what part of the country you're in terms of workforce. But in this particular case, I knew I was going to go into food. Like in the entrepreneur thing, I agree with you. I didn't know the word entrepreneur, but I knew it was part of who I was. And I don't think anyone actually called me one until I was probably about 23 years old, because I just didn't, it wasn't like I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I think that's in today's modern age that's a thing. But in the 90s, like, that was not a thing. Early
Yeah.
2000s, like being an entrepreneur or being called that was not exactly glorious, because it meant the struggles. Everyone knew the pains. It was a risk. Parents didn't want their kids to be entrepreneurs, like taking a risk and being a rock and roll star, So that's what people saw it as. But what happened is the technology age allowed the entrepreneur to get the tools to compete with Goliath. Okay, while Goliath moves slow and can't move, it's got all this armor, we don't have any armor, we're not weighed down by all this assets and all these things and all these employees. So we became more nimble, especially in food, especially during all the chains that blew up during the chain era from the 60s to the 80s. The entrepreneurs in the food business started fighting back. not intentionally, not to be competitive, but just by the nature of the way the world works. So good. I would say that's goodness coming out of something that, while may started in good places and they create a lot of jobs, we always as entrepreneurs push things to be better. So in our businesses.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about Chicago. Let's talk about what happens next.
It wasn't long. I remember I lived in Chicago for like 13 years.
Okay, that was a
Yeah,
long time.
and
There you go.
yeah,
Now I understand why your English is so fast. It's not a Texas drawn out English. I'm like, for learning English, she really speaks English fast. And it was one of the things I was going to anchor on the language later, but we'll talk about it now. Is that I know that I've started using Spanish a lot more, finding myself, rebuilding myself, losing my identity. When without the businesses for 24 years, I attached a lot of my identity in them, not enough in God, not enough in the world holistically. And in the humbling of myself, the way that God does it, and putting me in a place to listen and not speak, Spanish became something I was working on. And I just, out of the nature of being Italian, started working on my Italian again. And then seminary, you have to do ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek, Old Testament, New Testament, understand the words. And so I've been learning a lot of that. But one of the things that I think that's interesting about languages, and I never connected it until the last 3 years. Maybe everyone has that speaks multiple language. They do this connection, but it didn't connect until I started like thinking truly in Spanish when I'm at work sometimes, or was at my consulting projects, or in the hotels, or at the place doing donuts, whatever I was doing over the last 2 years to sort of figure my way. What do I want to do? Do I really want to be in food still? Do I really want to do a podcast? Like, what am I doing here, Justin? Like, what, do you even know if you're good at what you do? There was some of that and doubt. But one of the things that happen is, when we think in different languages, because they're constructed differently, they force us to think differently. And in thinking in a different language, because the construction's different, it leads to different creativity in those moments. I'm not kidding you. I wish I was making it up, but it's like, it's very interesting to me. But but the same thing is true here. We're talking about your mind is expanding its capacity by learning English. At the same time, you're building this capacity to be an entrepreneur, or take an entrepreneurial skill. Let's say you're growing the seed, you're pollinating it through working on your English. So the two are correlated. One leads to the other, guys. And that's generally the way entrepreneurship is. If everyone's like, what do I need to do? There is this weird parallel. And if it's leading to your growth, as well as the growth of the humans, animals, community around you, you're probably going in the right direction. Or someone just says to you, hey man, this is really good. You should sell it. Be careful, because I know a lot of success stories are heard about that, but 9 out of 10 times it's not true. It's not a commercial product. You need to work on it, or you need to develop it further, and you need to have other audience test it before you bring it to market. Don't go off of just one person saying you should sell something. That's just one customer. Monica, let's talk about Chicago. Sorry, I went down another rabbit hole.
it's okay.
You're there for 13 years.
Yes. So I was saying, I think I got into 96, and in 98 I met my husband. And again, this thing, it went into, I had this I had this dream too. Like I remember in Chicago, going to visit Columbia College, and I will go and I will say, this will never happen. But it felt so good just walking in there. And I used to go because I lived right outside in the Pilsen community, which is like the Mexican community, and we were like, I mean, 3, 4 stops away from the train station, and I will sometimes bike there, and I will go to the college, and I will always say, but because of the way that my legal status was, it was like kind of like not obtainable at the time, right? And I always thought I would like to pursue this, the same thing that I did in Mexico, but in the U.S. side. But in the meantime, I always want, like, again, drawn out to the food, to the so and 98. Well, through the 98, I remember going right by the courthouse. There's this like pizza place, and I love pizza, right? So I visited this pizza place, and I remember going once with my aunt and my cousin, and I told her, see the guy that works in there, I think he's cute. I would tell my aunt will say, no, no, not a pizza guy. No, no pizza guy. And my cousins are like, no, no pizza guy. And I'm like, the guy is young. The guy is probably going to school, like, and this is just his like, and which it turned out that was the case. But so I remember going, like, again another time, like a couple of times I went, and I actually was frustrated with him, and I told my aunt, after all, I don't think he's cute, because he was having a hard time understanding my what I was telling him, like what I was telling him, and I thought, is this guy trying to make fun of my English, right? Like, and I'm like, okay, that's it, I'm done talking English, and I'm done talking to this boy. So, and then I remember going, like, the third time that I went, and he brought my pizza, and like he brought the pizza, and I'm like, he hit up the pizza. It was three of us, other friends. And then he brought, this is yours. He remember telling him, and like he brought me, he put all extra little stuff, made a former, like a little heart and whatever. And I'm like, okay, so the girl started like kind of like, oh, I think he likes you, and blah, blah, blah. And we started having a conversation after that, but it was after he brought me the pizza, and that it was just like a sausage simple pizza, like, and he brought it to me, and again we started talking about pizza and food, and that's how we ended up, like, he ended up asking me for my phone number. I gave him my phone number, and the rest is history after that. And it turned out that I did have it right. He was going to college, and that was his, like, his work that he had, but he loved also making pizzas. He loved food. He loved the kitchen. He was going to school at the Paul University for business, but his heart was always into like making those pizzas, making recipes, making the sauce, right? Like making all of this, and he was helping this guy. It was also another Italian, a little older than him, not by much though, because he was a young guy. Like now he has a bunch of pizzerias. This gentleman I'm talking to about, and my husband was very young, going to college. That's how we met. And I remember our first outing was going to a Halloween party, and he was dressed, because he was coming right after work. I was dressed as a Cinderella, and he was dressed as a pizza boy, and he came in with a bunch of pizzas. Well, again,
Oh
food,
my God.
like, through the party,
He loves pizza. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
There is no
yes,
doubt now. Go on. I love it. I love it. As an Italian, I love it. I mean,
yeah.
especially since my
He loves.
family's from Naples. Yeah. Go on.
Oh wow. Well, okay. So his family and his mother's side are, I believe, they are the ones from Naples too, and he has people from Naples and people from Bari.
We've
And
established food is your love language.
yes, totally is. Palacio, I feed you. I try to bring you back to life. If you're feeling like it, there's like, let's do some cafecito. Let's do some food. Like, let me cook you something. And I put it into when you're not feeling well. But back into this whole like building, we were like still young, and he was working with this also a relative young guy that had the pizzerias. And then our first Bella Roma Cafe was actually built like about 21 years ago in Chicago. Our first one was there. We did have a Bella Roma Cafe, and it was pretty much almost like a semi-identical thing. We were in business for maybe about a little over a year, but around that time we started having family, and my daughter was a baby. We were young too, and I was doing the business, and he was working. We were like right across from each other. That building belonged to the guy that owned the pizzeria, right? So my husband will run to me to the coffee shop, and we'll come back and forth. But it started getting harder for me because we had a baby, and she was born. She needed me a lot, and then they were gonna remodel that. Actually, the whole building, it was gonna be turned down and remodeled. And they were like, so before that even happened, we decided to sell the business so we can focus on like in like the family. And he was working, he was trying to finish also school, because after that happened, of course, like old fashioned Italian, like parents, they say, you know what, you got married, and now you're never going back to school. But we showed them that we were able to, like, we were dealing with like being entrepreneurs at a young age, having a baby and having my husband finish online and in campus. He's like, so he can finish up his degree and finish up with, his college and all of that. That like that the life wasn't gonna stop because we got married, and we decided to build a life together. And we were young, but like we were gonna do that. So it was kind of hard. It got to us, and I think we were very young and not a lot of like guidance when it comes to that. We didn't have as much information, and now these days exist out there. There were a lot of roadblocks and stuff. So we actually decided to sell, and then just a few months later, and we did tell the people, I think they're gonna rebuild the, like this whole building, but you can come back and do it on a brand new. And I think they never went back and did it, but that was our first like Bella Roma Cafe in Chicago. And we took a long break because it's been again, like we opened my first location here at the food court in Corpus about 2.5 years ago. So we took like about, 18 or so years break, and started to build a life with, caring with the kids. But, back into the whole food also is like, how awesome it was that I married into the right person, because they're also their love language. And I know you say you're Italian too. It was food. It was food. Like, I think I gained so much pounds just by going to the Sunday dinners with my husband. Because if grandma served you that pasta and you did not finish, or you see stop, it was, you're offending grandma. It's like grandma's cooking, you can't say no. And it was food galore, but it was so beautifully before. He still has one grandma alive, and she's 100 years old. And the other one passed away 10 years or so back. But both of those grandmas from the father's side and the mother's side, I actually learned in the kitchen from them. They used to make the pasta like grandma. One of the grandmas will use like the bag from the store, but one of the grandmas never, like the one that is 100 years old, she never ever took those kids to a McDonald's or to any other food. Everything was made fresh in her kitchen, even the pasta. She was like, okay, you want pasta? Let's go. She'll start with a little volcano flour and, doing the little middle thing and throwing the eggs and throwing this. And I felt so much love, and I felt like I was in the right family because they also love the food, and love was his language. And I absolutely love learning from the grandmothers and from my mother-in-law in that kitchen and that Italian kitchen now. And I will throw my spice though. I will throw my jalapeno, my serrano on top of whatever on top of, that ficel. And they will do the little, like, they will do their parsley with the olive oil and the fresh tomatoes and that. And I will do it with the olive oil and that. But on top of that, I will chop a very tiny serrano and throw it on top to give it that kick. And it was like, okay, I'm content, and everything is good. So yeah.
No, I love this. Something I want to talk about here a little bit is the grandparents' generation.
Mhm.
One of the things, and we talked about this on Spain Wine Bar Guys with Peter Elias also a little bit, but not, I didn't anchor it in the way I'm going to anchor it now. But he mentioned the same thing with his mother. He couldn't understand why his mother would go to 15 different places to get all their groceries and not just go to Kroger like everyone else's mom. Okay,
Mhm.
I couldn't understand why my grandmother needed to go to this butcher and that baker and this person and that person.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they knew that's been passed down for thousands of years, guys, I don't even know how to explain it, it's even in the Bible, is that the importance of, and I'm going to say women because that's biblically what it says, to gather and provide nutrition for their families. And it means to go to any distance. And I think everyone's like, well, okay, well, we don't need to do that anymore. I agree in some ways, okay? In other ways, the thing that they knew that we didn't know is the best way to grow the brain, the best way to grow the body is still ultimately at the end of the day the best ingredients. And the entrepreneurs that are out there in the food businesses, they didn't call them entrepreneurs then, they were Freddie. Hey, Freddie, sling me some bread. Today
Yeah.
I need the whatever. Give me my bread. And, and I need a half a pound, the whole stick, the hard salami this time, not that other Genoa stuff you gave me last time. That's the way it is.
Yes. Yeah.
right? Because they knew they were following the Italian purity laws, or they knew they were the ways they were doing it because they were transparent. The transparency matters in those communities. Why? Because when you're new in a country, or you're in a country that doesn't have as much abundance, the most important thing you can grow is the humans. Okay? And why isn't that the emphasis when I say in maybe America in the same way? Because our emphasis on growing the humans is more from a mental standpoint, an educational standpoint, an outsourcing standpoint than doing it in our homes through our food with our love, going the distance it takes. And do you have to go to 15 different grocery stores? No, but what I mean to add a direct comparison is there should be the miles, the distance gone, in the analogy to have good, healthy food in your home, and
Yeah.
I'll slip on this. I can get cheap, guys. Like, I'll get financially stressed here and there, even though it's not meaning anything, but I take it out on the food. I call it taking out on the food because it's the first thing we slice. Instead of the things we really don't need, we slice our health and nutrition. But anyway, that's
Sure do.
just to anchor it for everyone. It is an important thing. It's been very, very, very important for the survival of humans that there has been both the hunting and then the latter part, what I'm talking about, which is the gathering of all the other things to fill in the gaps of what's not being hunted. Anyway, so let's talk about 18 years off, selling the business. Like, did you think you were going to take 18 years off? And then what are you doing in the meantime? Because you're obviously, food is your calling. You've got this like thing probably like just radiating out of you. Maybe you're expressing it in a different way. Let's talk about those 18 years.
I sure will, but I can but am I able to add a little bit to that before that
Yes,
you
of
say, just in
course. This is
case,
your show. You have 50 more
any,
minutes.
oh my goodness. So in case we have anybody young, that one of the things that my husband, even myself now, you kind of regret. My husband, he was blessed. I say blessed with two because his parents were like, two separate families remarried. They were young, never, their relationship didn't work out. So they had to, like, the stepdad and the stepmom and two different families, right? And he was very loved. And from the one side, the my father-in-law, rest in peace, he used to go every summer before summer to the farm with all the Italian guys were he like, yo, and all of this and all the wine. And they used to harvest all the tomatoes, right? And they will boil all these tomatoes and they will can all the tomatoes to have it all for the winter. They will do it every summer, and they will do also the grapes, and they will make homemade wine, right? And they will do the sauce. My mother-in-law never used like a sauce from a can. Like, it was always, they will harvest all these tomatoes, make the wine. And my husband and I would get invited to the farm a couple of times, but we always say, it's a bunch of older guys. Like, what are we going to do? We're going to get bored, right? And now we think about it and we wish we would have gone and learned more than what we did just in the kitchen. If we would have had the time and somebody told us, if you will go, that was one of the things that we will do. We will go to the farm and learn how to, like, all of these things that they did to have all of this, like, fresh wines and like fresh sauce and all of that. That's all the one thing I wanted to add. So if anybody like has the opportunity to learn from the older generations, do learn, because the way that this, like, the modern life goes, and you go like you lose a lot of like the traditional things in the food. There's a lot of preservatives and all of this stuff that gets added now into the stuff because, like, this world is getting bigger, so the demand is higher and you have to mass produce more stuff. But if you're able to, that's the only thing I wanted to add. Like, if you are able to learn from, like, and learn and feel the love through that food and through the lab prepping from the very, like, the very roots, like, go for it and do it.
I agree with you. And one of the things I think I want to extrapolate out of all this, guys, is the pizza boy comment, but also food in general. And as I'm anchoring into the next conversation, one of the reasons I'm talking about the 18 months off and getting the information, but also talking about the desire is, as entrepreneurs, particularly in food, or particularly anyone in the food industry that keeps growing and gaining skills, one of the good things about having food skills is we'll always have a job. It may not pay what we used to get paid. It may not pay what we want to get paid, but there is always the ability to work in food somewhere because humans and animals always need to eat. It is a guaranteed income. If you do well,
Yes.
you stay honest, you build a character, and you learn, you grow always, no matter how low the position is, how high the position is. It leads to a lot of in life, and you never know how lowering yourself could lead to something else. But I'm just saying, when it comes to the skills, the kids who pick up the job in the fast food business in life or pick up a knife skill while they're in school, they learn both business as they're in a business, a very tangible business, one that deals with customer service, inventory, customer satisfaction, ordering systems, drive-throughs, cooking, cleaning, menu, recipe control, food safety, uniform control. All of those things happen in a food establishment. I just want to talk about that with everyone and anchor that. So let's go on to deciding to sell in the 18 years.
Well, after that we did, like I said, we started having family. So our daughter, like, I wanted to be there for her, like, too. And we were very young. My husband was still working, like, at the pizzeria and taking a class here and there, like, still again and online and that, but he was like, right. And I ended up getting a job. I'm always being like really creative, but I think it's the ADHD brain too. Now I understand also why caffeine will do the opposite to me, like will put me to sleep or relaxes me, instead of people says I can't drink that night because I can't sleep, right? Me is because of the ADHD brain. So that's what I say. I was very creative. I was very good with my hands too, and very resourceful. So right next to my husband, there was a flower shop. And the lady right next to the pizzeria where he will work too, the lady was looking also for like somebody to help her because she had a main job and this was her like hobby thing. So she needed somebody. So I started like doing that. Like and that time after like the cafe and that, because I can, it was not, you know, like entrepreneurship life is like, it's a 24/7 job. And I needed to bring a little bit after that. Now I know that it was after having my daughter. I think I was a little bit like postpartum depression. It took me many years to realize that it was what it was back then. And so I was like kind of scared also for my daughter and that, but I think attribute to all of that that I didn't know all these things that, that now we have all this information on. So, but I didn't want to just stay either. So that flower shop allowed me to also like to be right next to my husband, right next to the, like the food too. It also allowed me to get my creativity out and be with my daughter, because my one thing for my boss was like, I'm not able to give you that. My daughter's my priority and I'm not able to give you that many hours. So like, that's perfect for me. It's not, so it kind of worked well for us. And then we started having like the family. I wanted to have more kids. We ended up with 3 kids, right? Like, so, and I did during this time too, around this time in Chicago, it was back where like real estate was really like prices were crazy. You have to spend $500,000 and then you have to like those houses, you have to gutter out those houses and basically rebuild them and stuff. So we always thought it was crazy. And I was told my husband, since my parents lived in Mexico, and they used to visit me every summer. My mom will spend the summer with my sisters, my younger sisters, and they will spend it. As soon as they're out of school, they will go and spend the. And at one point also their visa got denied, and it was a whole new thing that I didn't see my mom as often, right? And this opportunity became like, okay, we're too young and I don't think we have the capital right now. Or like our parents weren't like rich, they're gonna say, okay, here's this money to put down in a house, right? So we're like, okay, we saw an opportunity and the down south, even farther than Corpus in the valley, right? Like 20 minutes from Mexico. And we purchased a home just to have some real estate, piece of real estate in our name. And because we were young, right? And we rented and so, and through all of these years, like through all the time that I spent in there and growing my, starting with my kids, I went away a little bit from the entrepreneurial like food part. And like when it comes to making business with it, I will still make cookies. People will still like, cause they know me from the court. Hey, can I order? I'm gonna have a party. Can I order all these many cookies, right? And well, and then this time too, I also started adding like this pretzels covered chocolate, the strawberries, that all of that because again, I was very detailed. So I will make it look, I will look to like decorate my strawberries, my pretzel rods, my cookies, whatever. I will put the extra touch in it. So people still like order that stuff of me while I'm doing it out of my house, while I'm teaching my older daughter. Oh, this is a fun thing. I turn it into a fun, or let's have a, like it's like teaching, but really in reality, I was like trying to make that okay. I'm gonna get this extra passion here, and while she's actually taking care of it, like and doing something fun for her. And so I will do all of these things. I will work at the coffee shop. I will also sell like and stuff. My husband ended up going also to work for Giordano's Pizzeria and trying to finish up his online classes. So he would work long hours too, and then he will go to food. And I remember going. He ended up being like a general manager of the location at Rush Street, which is one of the like the busiest locations, right? And but my husband also has always been a foodie. Like he loves that. Like I will get in there and I will go look for him. And I'm like, is my husband here? And they were like, he was just here. And it was a big pizzeria, right? And they will look for it and they couldn't find it. And I'm like, I know where to find it. I will go because it was like kind of levels. And I knew exactly when they couldn't find it, I will find my husband in the kitchen where all the pizza maker guys were at. And with his tie tucked in between like the shirt and between button to button, he will tuck in his tie in there so it wouldn't cut in the roller, right? And I
Yeah.
will find him smiling from like ear to ear, flipping those pizzas and that flour like that dough going up in the ceiling, like almost all the way up to the ceiling. And I will just watch him like enjoy him. I enjoy very much watching that smile, that thing from ear to ear that he enjoyed very much. Like being in the kitchen, being like thrown in there, doing those pizzas, pouring the cheese certainly way. And like the thing is like he absolutely till this day, you wanna see that man happy, give him like let him be in the kitchen too, or let him put, or let's have family dinner, let's have pizza night. Everybody enjoy their own topping. But so through all these times that even though I wasn't working on that, food again was always I was always a big part of us, a big part of like like growing up. I still did my cookies on the side. I still decided to. And then another thing that, and it's kind of funny because a lot of people will always kind of, some of those people will be really like interested in myself. Some of those people will be like, oh, here she comes. Because if it was like teacher day or Halloween or whatever, right? I will get there to my kitchens like daycare or school when they got older with the best decorating brownies or cookies, or like my kids' lunch boxes were not just your typical like sandwich. And I will cut little pieces and I will cut the fresh fruit and I will make it into little shapes and I will put the extra tomato as their, like, I don't know, their face, or the little black olives as the little butterfly thing. I will be like, I will give all of these things to my kids, and I will also bring for, because again, that was my love language. And if any teacher took care of my kid and my kid had a good day and I didn't know how to thank you, I was gonna cook for you. I was gonna bring you either a cookie, I was gonna bring you a dish of pasta, or I'm gonna make you some like Mexican dish and bring it to you just because I'm so grateful for you. And that's how I show appreciation and love to you. I will always be the mom that some people love and some people hate, because here she comes with her like elaborated stuff. But I didn't do it for a show. I did it because it was for selfish purposes. It was because it made me feel good. I got that kick. I got that, like I'm in the kitchen, I'm baking, I'm cooking, and it's such a happiness. It brought happiness to me that again, I think being selfish of me thinking I'm gonna be happy making this. I'm not doing it because, oh, look what she's bringing. No, I didn't. I felt good, and I feel like I was pouring my love into everything I put in there, for not only for my kids, but for those teachers that were nice to my kids, that were work long hours. And then I knew back then too that they didn't get paid enough. I feel like they don't, because like like kind of teaching kids, and that is a hard job to do, right? So this was my way of saying I love you, and me staying also with my the stuff that I love doing, that I love being in the kitchen, that I love with my mom visiting me, and like both together we'll throw. And forget about, and those times too, if my mom will visit me and we needed to bring something for the school, if I say, Mom, I want to do this 2 or 3 floor cake, my mom said, like, let's make it 5. Let's make it 5. My mom never, like, my mother never, and now even my younger sister will never say to me that is a crazy idea. I absolutely love the woman in my family. My 2 baby sisters will never, you will never catch them. I will call them because they look up to me. I'm older than them, and I will say, look, I have this crazy idea. And they will listen to my idea and they will say, well, let's add to that. And why don't we, do you think that, I mean, we will always make it, like bigger, but also because, again, we enjoy our time together, communicating through that and pouring our love into whatever we are making. So through all that time, like, again, through all those 18 years, I watched my kids grow up. Then how the actual, like, move where it was, uh, we already had the property and near the valley, I mean, near Mexico, and we had tenants throughout this time, right? And one of them, like, left, and I remember it was, and you talk about it a little bit, the snow and all of this, which at the beginning when I started living there was like, oh my god, but then towards the end it's like, oh my god, like, is this is enough snow, right? And now we have 3 kids. We end up with 3 kids. It was getting hard. Our in-laws live in the suburbs. We live in Pilsen, right outside the city. Took us 10 minutes to get to the city, and it was kind of hard. Like, I was getting hard, like that. The winters were brutal on me too. Like, after having, like, my 3 pregnancies were like, I had very high risk and they were very complicated pregnancies. So it's kind of, my body was taking a toll too, even though I was a younger person. I mean, they were hard pregnancies where, like, and one of them, my husband had to, okay, you need to sign a paper. Until this day, I don't know who. She's like, you need to choose. If there's one life we're gonna save, if we get to that point, because it looks like which one is going to be. And I hope he shows my daughter, because I would have done that. And so anyhow, like, through all this time, like, like, it was getting harder for us as a family. So one day, this last time that the tenant left, I told my husband, I said, what if we moved over there and just take live there for a year or so? And my husband is like, sure. And I'm like, what do you mean, sure? She's like, yeah, sure. Like, let's do it. I mean, let's totally do it. And I'm like, you're not being absolutely stern what you're saying. He's like, no, no, I am. I mean, wherever you want to go, I'll go. And why not? We're like, we're having, the house is not that far from your mom. You have a lot of family over there. The weather is warmer. We're not going to have to worry about, like, all this snow taking our kids, like, at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock to go pick them up from Giordano's, because we only have one vehicle. And I had to go and take those babies and, like wrap them up in these bubble suits and all of that. And 2 in the morning sometimes when it was hard, like when it was like busy season and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, why not? And that's how, like that's how we ended up doing our trip. And we lived less than a year in McAllen. I mean, in West Laco, Texas, which is near McAllen. And we lived, but we kind of did not like it. Kind of like, it was kind of not bad. So we kind of started going back towards Chicago. And at this point, my husband does have he ended up finishing college and he has a degree in business. And so we stopped in here. One of my uncles worked at that, because Corpus Christi has a lot of refineries. And so my husband ended up working in there and going into the refineries. And he's now like a site manager for a contractor. And I mean, Corpus treat us really well. My husband does well for himself, right? But if you ask me, my husband has always missed, like, till this day. Again, you want, and everybody that works with him. I have people that have come stop at the coffee shop and tell us, when is your husband going to go into the pizzeria? You guys need to add a pizzeria to your coffee shop, right? Because they have tasted my husband pizzas, because he will make them in the winter. And the summer is too hot in here for a house to be with the oven. It's way too hot. But people that said, I last week, one of the guys said, like, hey, I want to be even a silent partner. People will say, but my husband is never want to take advantage of people, or it's always kind of scared, like, to, like, what if? But I'm the risk taker. That one is like, well, we'll find out. I mean, you pour your heart into everything that you have, and we will make it work. But I still have people telling like my husband, I believe in you, because whenever they talk to him and it's about food and it's about pizza and that, my husband's like face lights up like a Christmas tree, and you can see it. He don't see himself, but if you're sitting across from him, and I think it's the same thing with me. Let's talk about God. Let's talk about like coming up with a new recipe, a new this and a new that. It, it that face lights up. But that's how we ended up now here in Corpus. We started like decide, and in the meantime, and that time I needed to have an income too. I did work for that corporation, for the same company my husband works, but I used to feel so terrible going to work and having to, yes, I'm like, this is not the life for me. Like, I don't like it. I will tell my husband, it's not, I love my coworkers. I loved everything. I didn't, like they ended up pulling me from there to actually work in their main office as the corporation. And it felt just so wrong. I was making money, yes, because a lot of people told me that I was crazy from leaving leaving the refinery. And again, I left it after my daughter started high school and she didn't want to drive. And I didn't want her to be relying on other people to give her rides. And actually, I did not enjoy. It wasn't for me. There wasn't for me. You know what I used to do too? Like in there, like working my best day was the days that we had a potluck or we had a birthday or we have some kind of celebration, because I will coordinate all of that and I will cook. And I will cook for everybody. Everybody will bring out, like sometimes made from their house, or sometimes people will buy stuff, just bring it, right? But I will cook and I will enjoy that a lot. And people will tell me, "Oh, I'll pay you if you make me a tray of pasta or a tray of like a tray of rice or a tray of whatever, right?" So in the meantime, when I worked through that, my best days were the days that we used to make all this potluck. So I had to decorate for something or I had to bring a dish, because I mean, I got in the kitchen, I prepped it. At this time, I already have more experience in doing like bigger, like trays of food instead of just little. And because also at one point in my house, I had my mom, my dad living in here with me. We were five of us plus my mom, my dad, and at one point even my sister with her daughter. So it was a bunch of us in my house, and we were like, dinner time will be all this chaotic but beautiful thing, because it was my mom, my sisters in the kitchen, my husband, myself, and we're talking, we're like doing, and we're actually like cooking food. And again, doing the food, being together as a family, throwing it out there and the table, like it was a whole deal thing. But in the meantime, again, I left the school, and then I loved being involved with my children. My children have always been like my priority too, right? So when they were in school, I will always belong to the PTA till this day, until like my kids are soccer kids too, my little ones. So they've been playing since they were 3 years old. So a lot of that thing that I enjoy is also because it was game day. You have to bring snacks, right? So again, my snacks were always elaborated, not just your slices. I will like put the little slice with the fresh like neem leaf in it for them to be keeper fresher. So I always was able to do other things, like and I love bringing snacks. And then it was their birthday party. So it was teacher's day or whatever day it was at the school. I loved it because again, it got me that time to be in the kitchen, to be with either my stove or my knife and my fruits, or whether it was baking or it was cooking. And then I also got an offer, because I volunteer so much. I got offered a job with the school, and because they all knew me, and I did ended up working for them for like during pandemic, because now we skip all this, like all I did always I will like all food, and always people always bad stuff from me, like, oh, can you make me a cake, can you make me these cookies, and you will put it to me, and sometimes I never done this, right? But the challenge, my brain thrives in challenge. I would like say yes, I mean, I can try to do it. I don't promise it's going to look the same, but I will always put my spin on it. And I was always successful on the side doing that. I will put like in the market, like place, like you said a good point, like that, like not because one person told you, you don't go and do it. Because but I had a lot of people all the time. And whenever I will do something, I will say, okay, I'm going to post, and I'm going to post it in my page, right? And I will always sell out. And whether it was my mom will say, let's do some tamales because, I had a medical bill that came in and I don't want you to pay for it, or I want to do it. And I never took that away from my mom. I said, okay, you tell me, I'll tell the teachers. And right away, I got to 50,000 like quick. Within an hour, I would say, I want two, I want three, I want, and they will call it grandma, right? So your mom is making tamales, I will do it. And my mom and I will sit and make it, package them, like and give it to. So through all these years, I always go back to the same thing of like the food, right? During the pandemic time, when it was kind of scary, and that at this time I was already doing also, because again, like my brain tries and like creativity or like do this. I also did like a bunch of like shirts, and like I learned how to do all these balloons decorations, and that not only food, because you're artistic, right? So during pandemic, I used to do a lot of yard cards for the birthdays, and for the drive-bys, I will do all these streets. The people will just drive by for a birthday party, and we'll pass like these cupcakes, the pretzels with the chocolate, like the fruit stuff. But again, it was my spin on things that I always do. To put the little sticker. I will design stickers with the kid's name, with like thank yous, and that, like something very like, again, something that you pour your heart into it, and it will always make the difference between what I did than the rest of the people was also doing, right? I was always like, I'm very like grateful that I was always able to sell all of these stamps. And then, and during pandemic after that, I kind of left my work because I did get sick. And I had some other issues that I needed to take care of, like on my health. And it took me about a year or so to take care of my health. And then right after that, I said, my kids are getting older. I ran into this space that it was open, and it's a food court, and they already had like a Chinese, like a Subway, other places, but they didn't have a coffee shop. And just so happened that I'm a like a sign person. Like I feel like this is a sign for me, right? Months prior to that, a couple months prior to that, my mother, which is beautiful lady too, and she's so like very like, she shows love too by like not only food and that, but she's very like, if it's your birthday, she's gonna order this, all this personalized stuff, and all these like things, little things that she will do, right? And she will keep, she's an Italian mom, she will keep all of this. She had my menus, and I didn't know, from Bellaroma Cafe from like that many years ago, in a tote. So going through her totes, she found the menu, right?
That's awesome. That is awesome. I love this. Go on. The importance of keeping things we don't think we should keep sometimes. I can't emphasize this enough, the energy and the memories for entrepreneurs and keeping certain things. I don't know why. It's odd, but we do that. Books, certain things that we just hold on to, and people are like, why? We're like, I'm going to need this one day. I know it. Or someone that does it for us in this case. Anyway, go on, please, because I love this. This
Pictures
is so
and
true.
magazines.
Yes,
I
magazines.
think yes. So I remember my mother-in-law sent this toast. So she sent to this company that she guesting, and she did like a little, like a picture with the laminator, or like the menu, and then certainly other items, and even a picture. And then she sent it to us, and she sent us those menus, and she sent to us. And I'm like, I told my husband, oh my God, this is just like that. My husband was like, yes, I think, do you think that it will work? Like, and then we went to look, just to happen to look at that place, and we saw that spot, and right away the vision came. I'm like, that's the perfect spot. They don't have, it's a building. It's like one of the American Bank Plaza. There's like an office building. It's, like a high rise in there downtown here in Corpus, which if you ever spend time in here, it's totally different. Most places is all downtown is booming. Now it is trying to boom, and I'm so happy for Corpus Christi, which has been great with us, with my family, and I'm part of that community. I've been living already also, like now my other 14 years in here. And then I remember seeing that. I told my husband, and your mom just sent us that, and I just feel that this is the sign for us that, let's go ahead and do it. And I mean, we just kind of like jumped in. I had already taken care of all my health, and I was getting like, I was pouring into me, into my own cup, because I was always pouring into everybody's cup. And I felt like I have nothing else to do. I have to now pour into mine, get me back up until my cup is full again, and go at it again. And it's exactly what we did. And we went into 2 years and a half ago, we went into that place, and it's kind of hard being hard because I have even gotten comments from other people, and they're telling me that they felt bad for me because I was bringing all this new equipment, right? And I was building all, and they in their mind they thought, I don't know why she's spending all this money. She's not gonna make it in here. She's just not, because we're not that type of. It's a like a Monday to Friday kind of thing, and it's just from like it's certainly hours. It's catered more to the people that is like works. There's a lot of like law offices and administration buildings and stuff like that. It's not like a neighborhood or shopping area or nothing like that, right? So they always thought she's not gonna make it. She's not gonna make it. But you know what I saw? What I saw in that place is like the potential. I did not let. I'm like. I didn't let that comments and like my throwing at me the fact that I was an immigrant, that there was a little browner, that it was all of this never really affected me. Like I'm not gonna let these comments like affect me and stop me from thinking. I will sit in that because it's a beautiful place. Actually, I feel like like honestly has so much more potential. But the fact that everybody is so like, okay, it's just Monday to Friday and then the building is closed and that. But I will literally sit in there and dream of that place being filled with other things. I will post in my social media, even though people are telling me, why are you posting? Like, you're not the kind of coffee shop. You're not like an a shopping area. You're like in a food court and whatever. And I'm like, let me be. Just let me be. And I feel like, okay, this space is like wasted on the weekend. So I started promoting like private events on the weekend. Like most of the places that you go, there's no parking spot, right? Or they're full. The people are trying to look for a place where to put, but everything is so full. And then I'm like, I have all this. I have my back experience in party planning. I know how to build you these beautiful like decorations, and I also can provide your food and your coffee. I mean, what is it not to love? I had first I firmly believe on that myself. Then I poured that into people, and people started like booking me for those kind of parties too, like on the weekends. And I'm like, see, it's all you have to really, really, really convince and like feel it in your heart and your gut and your mind. Because I firmly believe also, if you feel in your mind, in your heart, that it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But if you feel it and you give it all you have and you don't let all of these things that we talk about, there's days that your machine is not working, your eyes is not working, and then you rely on a lot of drinks, and you have to send somebody, and there's a customer in between that comes and tell you you're never gonna make it, because how can you be? They will, most of them will be nice, but you will run into the ones that tell you you're never gonna because like this is unprofessional, this is not done well, this is not, because it just so happened that it just died on you, and like that morning, and you had to jumping into like, okay, like let's flip the switch and let's do it. I'm not gonna close. I'm gonna go send to get some bags maybe for half hour or so. I wouldn't have like, like I would turn customers down. But then the next hour we are going to have like the ice and stuff like that. So I think the people started to give a little bit like, like other people that will tell me, no, honestly, I'm so happy for you because I didn't think you will make it this far. Like you will make it this like like into this long. I also felt bad for you because I thought you were just spending your money, and I'm not telling you that I was making all of this, but I've been like the business is like you say, it takes a lot more time for you to actually become private, because there's always something new that you have to buy, there's always something that you have to invest on. So, and I always thought, as long as I employing some like the couple of the people that I'm employing is paying for that, is paying for the rent, and it's filling my soul. Also, that for me, that was a success. Like, do I have a lot of roadblocks? Yes. Did I get through all of that? Yes. And I still do every day. But during those 2.5 years, I also collected a lot of bad things, but I also collected a lot of the good things. The people will tell me, I wish you were open in another location where we can go visit you and not have to come downtown, because also there's a lot of construction around there, and people get intimidated by it. And they will tell me, I would like to bring my kids to have some of the mini pancakes that you make and that you decorate them so nicely, but you are open while I'm at work, and like, and then you're closed on the weekends. And so it was not one person, like you say. I didn't believe just one person. It was two, like almost 2 past years of me collecting that kind of data. Like, people will, yes, you are gonna get those people that are never happy no matter what. And but most of them were like, okay, they're good, feedback, and they're asking me for it, and they're asking me for it. And again, I'm a Philly person, and I always like this one shopping center by my house that is like literally 5 minutes from it. And I always kind of like come in here, and my daughter, my little one, and I used to actually kind of like come at nighttime, and we'll say, one day we're gonna be able to rent a place like this. And my daughter will say, look, mom, and we'll go to the drive-through, which I don't have a drive-through yet, but and we'll order. Let's order. Like if it was and I will say, okay, welcome to Belaroma Cafe, and she will say, okay, may I have like a caramel macchiato with like a breakfast burrito or something like that, right? She will say that, my little one, because we always, like I always insist that to them, like, like just feel it in your heart, and like and and do the work for it. You cannot just feel it in your heart and don't do the work for it, because it's not gonna happen. You have to work for it too. And so we will do a lot of that. So when this store happened, and I jumped into that, and oh my God, it was it took me from July all the way to like the beginning of December to actually open up that, because it used to be an office. And so we had to deal with city permits and all of this and all of that, and like going back again, back at it, back at it, back at it. But now it's been 3 months since I have my second location, and the people in the neighborhood always like thanks me, like, like, oh my God, we needed something like this, and we needed, like, it's been overwhelming. Of course, again, you're not gonna get 100%, like 100% recommended all the time, but like some people will like not be, like not be happy with anything, even with the way you say good morning, and but for the most part, I'm sure that, like,
Yeah.
when it's like, oh my goodness, they, and then sometimes it's silly things that they attack, like, oh, they will say something like kind of silly, and I'm like, okay, it's everybody has their own opinion, like, and everybody is, but I don't let that. And I always show my kids, they do work with me, like, like they go to school, and some of them work, and I have a lot of like some of the teenagers, and I have such a good group of people. They're smart, and they learn fast, and most of them have one of them right now is in a competition for debate, and he made it to nationals. And and they're so like they so believe in the concept, and they always telling me they're like my they're my anchors too, because they talk to me, and they say like, mama, you are, this is what you're doing is really good, and they help me promote with the young crowd too, and they always keep me on and keep me innovating, and always say, like, I take a lot in their opinions, that they say, oh, if you throw this or you throw that, have you ever thought about that? And you know what, and as hard as it gets, it's you have to have that on you. And as I talking to you, and I'm going back through all my life and my thing, I'm like, I always had it on me. This always made me happy since I was since I was a baby. It always made me happy being a mom, like cooking for my dolls, cooking for, like, that's my love language. It has through all my life, and I feel like maybe I'm late in life, and I decided to take a big break, but I don't regret any of that, and none of that, and all the hard days that I had, because as a matter of fact, just when I had just opened this, and it was right before Valentine's. And I think I even one of the podcasts I did, I had to move it, because I walk in that day right before Valentine's, 2 days before Valentine's, I go to grab something out of my cooler to go home, one of my protein drinks, and I feel it a little when I open it. I didn't feel that, and I have a brand new refrigerator, right? And I look at my thermostat, and my thermostat is reading 48, and I'm like, no, this isn't right. I have it set for 40. This isn't right. So I look at like I looked at it, and it's blinking. So the thermostat went off. So that night, which it was already late, and I'm tired, and I want to go home and sleep a little, because I have a lot of orders, especially for those little stuff that I make with all the Valentine's decorations. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had to jump into damage control, taking before I lose everything, taking out of things out of the refrigerator, putting it into the fridge, and put it into the prep tables, put it into my cooler in the front, when my plan was to have it all just beautiful with all these Valentine's things, right? And it's a brand new refrigerator. What it's like, how do you expect this to happen? But things happen. Things happen. And I just had to jump into damage and do whatever I had to do. And I ended up losing some money, and some of jars that I have made just for Valentine's, that I want to make these cookies and all of this and all of that. But it was because I had to, even flowers that I had already bought, that I had a fridge, that I had to move. And it just kind of makes you wonder, oh my God, it's like this is all brand new. What's happening to me, right? The next day, one of my panini girls go out, and I'm like, now at this time, it just, you have just one side of the grill, and then you have your flat grill. I'm not that big, like this place is not super big. So I'm like, you have to jump into whatever that, but I still do it every day. I will still do it every day. And after that, then on the coldest day in Texas, we're like, okay, this is gonna be a good day today. We're gonna have a lot of coffee meal in the morning. I have to get up in there early. My husband will come earlier to turn like the machine, the grills for me, and that's so I don't have to come even the extra earlier. He comes in here at 5 o'clock and does it. He calls me freaking out and he tells me the machine is dead. And I'm like, which machine you talking about? He's like, our espresso machine. It's not turning on at all. It's not turning on. It's not. And I'm like, oh my God. So I come into a machine. I had to buy one of my wands from my house, but at this point I can't steam milk because my wands are in my three steams, and I have two wands on each side, and my my machine is totally done. And call one of my friends, very good friend, and she owns a coffee shop here in town, and she's been owning it for a long time. And she jumped into it right away. She came in. She like, I really hope, because she's been in business so many years that she has parts for those machines, right? She like, hopefully it was just like a little switch, a little something inside. Her father and her come in and they diagnose the machine. And if the car was a machine, the transmission is off, basically. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, these things happen. And I'm like, so I'm not going to have, and the call, she's like, no, you're not. Because we have to like call the parts, and it's under guarantee. So they send you the part and everything. But that is such a beautiful thing to come and say, like, we don't look at it. So like like we're small businesses. And she's always helped me when I open my other shop and this one. She's always helped me with my POS system, with whatever, because she's more knowledgeable with that. She always jumped into helping me. And she's another coffee shop too. And I absolutely love, because she knows, she like, trust me, I know this. I know the pain. She's been an entrepreneur for years too, for many years. And so she knows the pain. So she jumped with me, and the very next day she came and she actually fixed my machine too. She installed a part that it needs, and it brand new and all of that stuff. So uh, aside from all of those bad things, there's always something good going on. There's something, just something rewarding, and I'm so grateful and so humble, like, to life that allows me to do this, what I do, pour my love into this entrepreneurship life that I absolutely love, with all the ups and downs and all the bad things that it happen, but it also has good things. It has rewarding things when you make somebody's day. And there's sometimes people are having bad days and they're having something. We all are having something in our personal lives. So when whatever, and you walk to my coffee shop, and I'm like, what kind of, I see people and like talk. Sometimes you need to talk to other people, and you need to have a little coffee, a little bit of food in your stomach, and then you can go on in the day and say, okay, let me look at this problem into a different perspective. And I don't think I will trade it for anything else. Like that entrepreneurship life, as much as that headaches that it does, is also very, very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's amazing. I'm going to ask you to sign up for another episode. Honestly, I have so many questions for you. If you don't mind, I would like to do a part 2 for sure, because
Not
there's
at
a
all.
lot of things I haven't even asked questions on, but I have literally probably 20-ish, maybe more questions that I have written down. So I'd love to have you on the show with just so the audience knows and they hear it as well. If I didn't have to jump on another recording, I honestly would keep going. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can they find you online? Where can they reach out to you?
To our Facebook right now, like our Facebook and our Instagram. And also, if you are local, if you listen and you are local, I mean, we do have like our and both of our social medias accounts, and there's Instagram and the Facebook, both of my location links to order like online too, and to see like my coffee shop and a lot of the stuff that I post, I you will kind of see where like what things I'm about. I'm about life, food, and coffee, and, be kind to each other, and, and just, you'll find this in I think you'll see it by my post and like my food whenever I'm doing something new in the kitchen, which almost every day. You'll find us in the social media, Bella Roma Cafe Southside and Bella Roma Cafe. And Instagram is just Bella Roma Cafe, and both of our links for both locations are in there in our bio. And then on the Instagram, I have Bella Roma Cafe and then Bella Roma Cafe Southside for both of the different locations.
Yeah, because that's also, and I'll just let the audience know I love you guys. Please continue to pass, share, like, subscribe to the podcast. That helps the entrepreneurs that are on here, but it also helps get the message out there. Also, sharing it with entrepreneurs who are trying to figure out their way in the food game, or just beginning, or maybe they're 20 years in. Listen, it's important that as food entrepreneurs, we go back and we listen to these stories, or we rebuild. Every once in a while, we are the proverbial, or the analogy of the boxer who has to go back to the boxing gym he started at and realize where he came from. I talked a little bit about it earlier in terms of resourcefulness. We have to remember where we came from, because that grit, that attitude, those skills are what built it in the first place. And there isn't anyone else in a lot of that times that are doing it during that time, that are connecting all the pieces. Do we have support system employees, people along on the journey with us, but we're driving the bus 24/7, or maybe God's driving the bus 24/7 and we're riding the bus 24/7, but still we're on the bus 24/7. So that's just the thing, guys. So continue to like, share, do all that. I also wanted to say this. One of the reasons we only do audio right now, and it sort of became a sticking point, is the best way to learn is to be listening to what you're learning while you're doing it. And if it's on a video and it's on YouTube, it loses, one, the purpose of this. Two, the conversation tends to be better when we can take the entrepreneurs in a way that's more comfortable. They're already stressed out in life. They don't need to worry about looking good on camera. That's the other part. I know what it's like to be stressed out and have a bomb drop off of you last minute, and you only have an hour and 15 minutes. So let's quick record and get this done. And if I had to do my hair, well, it would be a no. And so, because we wear hats and gloves and masks and beard things. But anyway, it is, so while we're at work, or we're with our employees, the feedback that I got, or we're driving in our food trucks or trailers, it is something we're in actively doing our business. That way, when something happens and we're listening to it, it's heavily anchored and it's heavily learned. Okay, it's multiple ways of doing it. It's just a better way of learning. It's the way I find it. It's no different than reading a book. Listening to it at the same time, you'll remember the words more. It'll go into your memory. So that's what I'm talking about. So that's why the format, I thought about it 1,000 times. I thought about it from my schedule. Am I being selfish? Is video really the way for Instagram and stuff like that? I think so, but I don't think it's directly with the podcast. I think it's me going and visiting the entrepreneurs and spending more time with them at their businesses and doing it in that fashion, and maybe some video content that way. But these podcasts in this format will, for a very long time, be in this format. I've thought about it, and I've got a lot of pressure to go to video, but you know what? At the end of the day, I don't want anyone distracted. This is the way it is. Maybe I don't get as much eyes. Maybe it's not as important, but I want to be in the ears, making the impact while we're doing it. My MBA was important because I was already an entrepreneur doing my MBA while I was doing it. I gained way more skills. I grew way faster during the program than my peers in a lot of ways. Did they grow in more ways than me in other ways? Of course, from a corporate standpoint, yes. But just to give everyone an anchor there, learn while you're doing the activity. We talked about the relationship here. We talked about the couple, and we talked about learning while you're living, basically. So it is a very important part. Thank you so much, Monica, for coming on the show. And everyone in the audience, I love you guys, and we're out.